I'm Cassidy,
And I'm Kennedy.
and this is Threads of Wellth. Okay, let's talk about the H2 tab for a minute, because I'm curious how you utilize it. I personally notice the biggest difference when I take it right away in the morning. And then I always have it at night before I go to bed too, but I notice the difference the most when I take it right away in the morning, just in my increase in my energy, and starting off the day right with hydration is huge. So how do you use it?
Same. First thing in the morning, I wake up and I take my isotonics with a hydrogen tablet. I look forward to that, and I know the importance of not starting your day immediately with coffee. And so that isotonics has been a really incredible thing to substitute, to wake up first in the morning, take that isotonics, take that H2 tablet or that hydrogen tablet. And then Tanner, for example, takes it in the afternoon, a little afternoon pick me up. So I don't think there's a wrong way to go about it, but I love starting my day with it. I also love ending my day. I put a hydrogen tablet in with my magnesium drink at night. I recently went on a trip to California and I forgot my tablets and I forgot my isotonics, and it's probably a mental thing too, but I just felt off. I just felt different. Yeah. And I could not wait to get back home and to reintroduce that into my routine, because I can just tell the difference it makes, like you said, in my energy levels and how I feel. And just that molecular hydrogen, fueling your body.
Yeah. And speaking of travel, seriously, everybody can relate to when you travel, your digestion is off, your energy is off. I feel like whenever I don't forget it and I take it consistently when I travel, I keep on track with digestion, and everything feels normal. And that's been a game changer, because I used to really struggle with that.
Yeah. And it tastes good too. I mean, it's really hard to find things that are good for you and you look forward to taking. And so the isotonics, in my opinion, taste really good. They have the raspberry flavored hydrogen tablets. They also have unflavored tablets if that's, your kind of a vibe, but they have all the options, and everything's on their website, h2tab.com, and you can receive 10% off with the code Threads of Wellth.
Today's episode is a deeply important one. Today we're joined by Karla Carlock from Oklahoma. Karla is a mom, an advocate, and a woman who has taken unimaginable grief and turned it into a mission to help protect other families. After losing her daughter Rain to fentanyl poisoning, Karla began speaking out about the dangers of counterfeit pills and help educate young people before one decision becomes a life-changing tragedy. This is a heavy conversation, but it's an important one. Our hope is that by sharing Karla's story and Rain's legacy, this episode will help parents, students, and families have conversations that can truly save lives. Karla, thank you so much for being here. Before we get into talking about advocacy and all the work that you're doing, I'd really love to just start with talking about Rain and who she was. Can you just give us some stories or just examples of who she was as a person?
Yeah. Rain was kind, funny, smart, creative. She loved art and writing. She was a great big sister. And I know a lot of people say all those great things about their kids, but she truly was just special. Really, just probably the love of my life, the greatest love of my life.
So when you think about her, what are some of the your favorite memories that you think about immediately, or just some of your favorite memories to look back on?
Oh, there's just so many, but I would say she loved Justin Bieber when she was little. And so I think it was second grade, she did a talent show and she sang his song, and her friend was supposed to do it with her, and her friend did, but when it came to the rapping part, her friend was quiet, so Rain rapped for her friend, the part it was that song Baby. And she was so nervous about it, but she did good. And then that same year my dad got her a life-size Justin Bieber cutout, and she had it in her room, and she just loved him, and she always wanted everything Justin Bieber. And then she loved animals. And so, like I said, we were military, so we moved all the time. So I didn't really want to have to commit to a pet because we were overseas at times. But she would sneak pets home. She'd find them outside and bring them in. And there was one time she brought home a baby duck, and I'm like, she was in high school at the time. She went on Craigslist and got it and brought it home.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
she would bring home like strays that she found, and she just loved animals so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
so she was your oldest, right? And how
Yes.
many other kids do you have?
Raina's my oldest, and then I have 3 other kids.
3 other kids.
Mhm.
Okay. So for those that don't know your story, can you just tell us what happened to start off with her story?
Yeah. We were a military family. We moved around probably every 2 years, maybe 3 at the longest. But my husband was an officer in the Army, so with his position, we didn't really have a lot of stability. And so the kids enjoyed moving, but the older Rain got, the more difficult it got for her to adjust. And so she started kind of struggling with depression and anxiety. And I got her into counseling. She was on medication, and she was doing well. But I guess after high school, she went off to college, and she was a freshman in college, majoring in early childhood education. And I thought she was doing well. She was working, and I was so proud of her. And she did end up buying a dog because she was on her own. She had her own apartment, and she got a sheepadoodle. Her name is Mars. And she called me on a Friday night and said, "Mom, I'm not doing good. Can I get back into counseling and get back on medication?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll call on Monday." And I said, Rain, God loves you and has big plans for your life, and you're going to be an amazing teacher one day. And she said, "Thank you, Mom. I have an assignment due by midnight, but I'll talk to you tomorrow." And I said, "Okay, I love you." And I got a call the next morning that she was found dead in bed with her schoolwork still open on her computer and her dog beside her in bed. And I just kind of lost it because I didn't understand what had happened. I just spoke with her. And then at the time I also hated myself. I was like, why, God? Like, I lied to my child. I told her you had big plans for her life, and she's never going to teach. She's gone. And, I just felt like my world ended. Mm. And it basically did. Like, the world that life as I knew it is never, ever going to be the same. But my husband was deployed overseas at the time. Well, and I just was screaming, and my daughter comes in and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Rain's dead," and she starts crying. And then my other kids are like, don't understand. And we were living on base at the time, and my neighbor heard like me screaming and crying, and she came over, and I didn't know what had happened or anything. And they had to get a hold of my husband, and he got I guess a Red Cross message and came back from overseas. And it took a few months, and I found out that she passed away from a Xanax laced with fentanyl, and I didn't understand. I just didn't understand. And so we start going through her stuff, and on her computer that night, she Googled, "What does a generic Xanax look like?" And it just felt robbed, and I felt horrible that, she thought something looked real. She thought it was safe. And that one decision cost her life. And I know she didn't know that night that she was going to go to sleep and never wake up. Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm first of all heartbroken for you and your family, and so sorry for the pain that you've had to endure and still endure when you think about her, you talk about her. But what you're doing despite of the heartbreak is amazing, and bringing awareness and advocating for not just like parents but also children to understand the very real consequences of this horrible drug that is probably all around us without us really knowing. So looking back, what would you say to parents just to kind of raise more awareness of what fentanyl is and how real it is and how much us and our kids are exposed to it?
I would just tell them, don't think that this can't happen to me. Because I was a school nurse. I knew about fentanyl. You heard about it all the time, but you never thought it could happen to you. And I want parents to realize that they need to be involved in their kids' lives, not just like, "Hey, how was your day?" but really talk to them. And no, it's never too early to start, because I've met so many parents that have lost kids, 10 years old, 11 years old. And so I think if they have their conversations with them and explain to them the dangers in the world that they're living in and how it's just not safe, and you don't have to have the right words to say. It doesn't have to sound perfect, but just be real and be honest and tell them about the kids that have lost their lives and how it just takes one time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What do people misunderstand about Rain's story?
Well, like I told you, I was always afraid to share her story because you'll see comments that, especially online under news articles, that'll say, just your kids shouldn't do drugs. Just teach them not to do drugs. But I think a lot of people just have that opinion like, oh, it's someone that shouldn't be doing drugs, or it's just happening to people that struggle with drug addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It happens to kids that try something one time, and kids a lot of times are going to experiment, or they do get desperate, fall into peer pressure, but it shouldn't cost them their life. And I want people to understand that it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. So many kids are losing their lives to fentanyl, and it can happen to just anyone.
And Rain clearly was not a kid that was involved with drugs. And she, by her Google search, you can see that. I mean, she was genuinely looking at like what she was concerned about, something that could be off. And so just to reiterate that, like, she was not a kid that ever was involved with drugs.
Yeah, she wasn't looking to, and most of the families that I've met, they're just kids that they think it's a real pill. They think it's something that's real. They don't think it's an actual drug. And then there's kids that also try to experiment with marijuana that's laced and vapes. And kids are curious, or they struggle with depression or mental health or peer pressure. And so they search out things, or they just don't realize that one time could be that one time, and you'll lose your life. And so I think most of their kids that have lost their life, probably weren't struggling with addiction or trying to get high. I talked to a paramedic one time, and I guess he'd been a paramedic for a while. And he said that, when he first started, he wasn't responding to drug overdose deaths. But now mostly every call he's getting, people have passed away from fentanyl. And he said you'll have parents that go to wake their kids up for school that don't wake up in the morning, and they weren't out like at parties. They're by themselves in their room, from one pill.
What are other besides like a Xanax, like what from other stories that you've heard from parents, what are their kids taking that have been laced with fentanyl?
Percocets, pain pills. There's been times where I've heard of Adderall, like people that are trying to stay up and study. Just so many different things. A lot of it is like anxiety medication, like a Xanax. And I also hear a lot of stories where people had surgery and were given pain medication, and then they're taken off of it. The doctors won't refill their prescription. And at this time, they've kind of become addicted, or their body's been dependent on the medication. And so now they go online and search for a pill that's going to provide pain relief, and it's laced with fentanyl.
You also mentioned like the marijuana and the vapes, and that I knew about the marijuana, but the vapes was kind of a little bit surprising to me. And I think it's because a lot of people view that as not not in the drug category. And they're just like, they're teenagers or they're adults, and it's just like something to do when there's really real consequences. And you focus very intentionally on the phrasing of the wording fentanyl poisoning. And I think that goes to the point, I want you to speak more on it, but it goes to the point where it's not necessarily people that are involved in drugs. And like similar to Rain, they're good kids. They're good people that had very innocent intentions. And then this horrible thing happened to them. And so when you talk about fentanyl poisoning and your advocacy and raising awareness, why is that wording and phrasing really important to you?
I think it's important because when you hear the word overdose, you assume that the person took a bunch of something intentionally. And usually when you pass away from fentanyl poisoning, which is what, like I said, it's a poison, they just took something one time, and you wouldn't think one pill or one hit of a vape or even smoking one joint is going to cost you your life. And so that isn't really an overdose. I feel like they were poisoned to death. And the thing that's with fentanyl that's really awful is that if someone does go to try a vape or a pill or, marijuana, if they survive, they're going to probably be addicted. And it's just awful. And so I've met moms whose kids have struggled with addiction, and it breaks my heart because they also weren't trying to get fentanyl and die. They were struggling with the disease, and my heart breaks for them. And then there's the kids that try it one time, and it's like, there's just so many victims in the whole thing, and it just breaks my heart.
What do you wish that students or kids knew about counterfeit pills and how dangerous they can be?
I want them to know that it just takes one time, and even if it looks real, it's probably not. Unless it came from your pharmacy or you've got it from a store that you opened up on your own, then, or like say you got it from your mom or your parents, but taking something that wasn't prescribed to you, it's just not worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you talked a lot about being there for your kids, and it doesn't have to look perfect. You don't have to have the right words. You don't have to know exactly what to say, but just showing up for them is extremely important. So, whether that's talking to other parents or just the time that you've had since Rain passed to reflect and learn all about it, what do you wish parents kind of understood about the pressure that kids are facing, especially in today's world?
I want parents to know that a lot of times kids are struggling and they just hold it in. They don't even talk to their parents. And I want them to understand like that even if they seem like they're okay, they could be suffering. And a lot of times people that do struggle with mental health, they're smiling on the outside, but they're really just hurting on the inside. And I think, just like I said, just be there for them and just not just say like, hey, how's your day? But really be involved and kind of find out what's going on, because if they don't reach out to you, then it gets to a point where they're just struggling so much that they could become so desperate at some time that they make one decision that ends their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now more than ever, it seems like kids are dealing with mental health issues more than, even 5-10 years ago. It feels like it's just skyrocketed. Were there any, besides Rain having, she struggled with depression and anxiety, but were there any signs that you saw she was taking pills or anything like that before?
I just think that I wish I would have known how sad she was, because maybe I could have tried something earlier. Maybe I wish I wasn't so busy with life that I didn't see how much she was hurting. The last time I saw her was Easter Sunday. We went to church together that day, and I got her an Easter basket, because I always give my kids Easter baskets. And even though she was 19, I got her an Easter basket, and I got her a dog an Easter basket. But the things I didn't know that was going to be the last Easter basket I'd ever give her. And so I think like during that time I had with her, I remember we were all just super busy, but I wish I would have like really held her hand and looked in her eyes and asked her really, how are you? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we need to do as parents. We really need to be involved and know what's going on and let them know that you're a safe place for them to talk to, that they shouldn't be afraid to tell you when something's wrong. And we just have to look at the things that may not be so obvious, mm-hmm. because those are going to be the signs that, they're just little things. It may not be right up front. And the thing with these pills is there may not be any signs. And that's why you have to really talk to them and educate them on it.
Yeah. Well, you're a great mom, Karla, and I think it's really easy for us to even see that Shireen had a great life. And kids, even when they struggle, I think with things like this, depression, anxiety, they can, that can happen to any kid. And even if they have wonderful parents and they come from a wonderful family, that these things can still happen. And what you're doing now to help so many other families is really incredible. Can you speak a little bit about that? How did this grief that you found yourself in, how did that turn into advocacy?
Well, when I found out Rain had passed away from fentanyl poisoning, I started researching just everything I could, and I watched documentaries. And there's it's called Texas Pictures documentaries, and they have tons of stories. And so I watched every single one of them just to kind of find out who this was affecting, how it happened. And then I kind of got involved in groups online, and I just saw that just the huge amount of families that were in my position. And so it's like almost like the amount of people that had passed away was it felt like it was a plane crash a day. And I'm like, why is nobody doing anything? Because there should be a COVID-like response with this. And I met parents in my local community that have lost their children. And so we talked and we started getting involved with legislation locally. And there was a dad there that lost his son a week before he was supposed to receive his master's degree. And so he walked the stage and received it on his son's behalf. And he kind of had been trying to get legislation going. So I started working with him. We met with senators and state representatives, and we're just trying to push for education because we knew that was really important. And there was a law in Texas called Tucker's Law, and I met his mom, and she was just amazing woman. And I saw what she was doing, and I thought, okay, we really need to get this in Oklahoma. And so the senator and the other dad was like, why don't we just call it Rain's Law? She wanted to be a teacher. And I'm like, I just started crying because I'm like, maybe I didn't lie to her. Maybe she will be a great teacher, just in a different way. And so we started doing that, and it passed in the Senate Ed Committee, and it passed in the House. Then it passed in the Senate, and then the governor signed it into law on February 26th of 26. And
just a month ago.
Yeah. So it's called Rain's Law, and now it's going to be requiring fentanyl education in grades 6 through 12 in every school. And it also touches on mental health and suicide awareness and prevention. And so kids will be learning about the dangers of fentanyl now.
Do you know how many states that something similar to this is, in law? I know you said Texas and now Oklahoma too, which is amazing. Is this a very rare thing, something that is basically just kind of like you're spearheading and taking off? Because I think that is so important, because even you think about young children in middle school, high school, just because they are, in their family home doesn't mean that they're not exposed to it. And so the earlier the education, I feel like the better. And I'm just, kind of learning about all of this stuff. And you've been now studying it and learning and advocating for it for a long time. So is it something that is kind of just beginning on a national level?
Yeah. So there's maybe I think 5 states. I know there's a couple other states that are trying to get something going right now, but definitely not enough. I think education is it's important, like I said, because a lot of kids don't talk to their parents, and sometimes they just don't have anybody at home that is going to talk to them. And even if they do, kids don't always feel comfortable telling their parents what's going on in their life. And I think if they have the education and see, what's really going on. And myself, I've gone to talk to schools on my own before, and there's kids that don't even know what fentanyl is or know about the pills. And I know growing up, if someone said, hey, do you need, if I have a headache, here's a Tylenol. You don't think about it.
Yeah.
You just automatically take something.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
It's just not, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah. Wow. So how has this journey been for you emotionally and practically? I can't imagine that it's easy at all to continue to talk about the story, and maybe it does help you. I don't know, but how has this journey really been for you on a personal and practical level?
It's been, it's hard. It's beyond hard. I wish more than anything I wasn't on it. I wish I could have my daughter back and everything would be okay. But she's not here, and I feel like she would want me to share her story because that's who she was. She was so loving. And so I use that to help myself keep going. And then I look at my kids now, and they lost their sister. I don't want them to lose their mom. And they're just growing up in a hard world. Our kids are. And I want to do what I can and use, what happened in my life and what happened to Rain to give someone else a chance to live.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's so hard.
For parents that are listening, can you give some tips and just share what's a good way to start this conversation with your kids that feels honest but effective at the same time?
I think just being real with them and not waiting till it's too late to start talking to them, and kind of finding out like what's going on. And online, social media is a huge issue. And I think if they need to see what's going on their kids' phones, their tablets, and just kind of ask questions, but not in a way that makes them feel like they can't come to you. They need to feel like you're a safe space and that you are there for them. So I think if you just are honest and remind them how much you love them and how important they are, I think that's what they should do.
So when you're talking to your kids now about it, like, are you saying, like, don't take any pills unless you talk to me first? Or are you showing them, like, this is what it would look like if it doesn't look, if it's laced with anything? Like, how, or are you just, again, saying, like, flat out, just don't take anything?
Well, my daughter, she went to school because after Rain passed away, we moved to be closer to my dad, who retired from the military. And because we were stationed at San Antonio, Texas at the time. So we moved to be closer to my dad in Oklahoma. And Rain was going to college in Oklahoma. So I just felt like we needed to be there. But her first or second week of school there, she was a sophomore. And she said, "Mom, I was in class and kids were passing around what they said were Percocets. And they asked me if I wanted one." And I just was like, oh my gosh. I said, "Did you tell them about your sister?" She's like, "No." I just said, "No, I don't want anything." So I had to call the school and I said, "I just want you to know that this is what's going on. And I hope you have Narcan." And I said, "I don't want to share my daughter's name because she's new here."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "But these children could die."
Yeah.
And so I took her out of that school, and I really, because I was just full of fear, and it's still scary, but I tell them, because even if it looks like the real thing, it's not. I just tell them, don't ever take anything from anyone. I think that's really what you have to say, because it doesn't matter what it looks like. You just really just have to be honest with them and say, like, one time, that's all it takes. And it doesn't matter if it looks real. Like the detective told me, they seize medical grade pill presses every day. So you won't know what's real and what's fake.
Yeah. Well, that blows my mind that kids in high school be passing around pills like that. Like, I just can't wrap my head around that.
I can't either. It's awful.
I had someone in the town that I live in this was probably a couple months ago, was just telling me that their 5th grader came home and said that someone was trying to give them melatonin on the playground. And I'm just like, that's insane to me. Like, they're so young and they're so innocent, and they don't know I think it was 5th grade. It might've been a little bit younger, but like, you don't know what kind of a home that this student's coming from. You don't know what that could be. And then to send your kid to school, and when they're that little, not knowing what they're surrounded with and exposed to, is a very scary thought. It's crazy. It's all around us.
It is.
Yeah.
In what ways now, as you've gone on this advocacy route, how do you see Rain's life affecting others now?
I hope that it's helping others. I hope it's bringing awareness to such a terrible problem in our country. And I hope that that even if just one life is saved, then I think that's it's I guess I would say it's a success if even just one life is saved. Yeah. One child gets to wake up and live, and that parent gets to see them graduate and see their dreams come true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What does it mean to you to carry on Rain's legacy and to, or that, and then also what do you hope that people take away from Rain's story?
Well, it's so important to me to keep her name alive because she's all I think about, really all day. And I see her and everything, and I know what she wanted to do. I have a video that she made exactly 1 month before she passed away for school because this class was online, and it said, I plan to teach first or second grade. It says, I love little kids and I want to make a difference in the world. And so I'm the only one that can do that because I'm her voice, and I want to make sure that she's still making a difference in the world if she's not here, because even though she's not here, the love is still alive.
Yeah.
And I just want to give the love that she had, that she gave to so many people. I want to keep giving it.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see your other children, how they're impacted? Do you see them wanting to continue on that legacy also that Rain left?
I try to, all of our kids, you love them all, but it's just different. You love them all differently, and they all have their talents and what they love. And my son, Noah, he loves basketball, and what he did is his number is 19 because Rain was 19. So, he doesn't make a big deal about it, but he wears the number 19. And his sister told him, Rain has the best seat in the house, So they do little things like that. I don't know if they really want to advocate so much because I just kind of let them do what they want. But my 17-year-old, she said when she's more comfortable, she'll speak. But right now it's hard.
Yeah.
And then my 7-year-old that I told you is about to be 8, she always writes letters or draws pictures and asks me to give it to Rain when I go to the cemetery. She's like, can you give this to Rain? So, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Now that you have Rain's law passed in Oklahoma, do you have now like next things that you want to work on and accomplish?
Yeah, I'm trying to help other families right now. Like there's a guy in our state who lost his 3-year-old to fentanyl poisoning. Oh, the mom had, I guess, an issue with substance abuse. And he told the courts, like, hey, I need my son with me. And they gave him to the mom. And so he's trying to get a law passed called Leo's Law. And that would require just testing for drugs and specifically fentanyl before they just determine who gets custody of the child. And he's working on that. So I've been kind of trying to be there and support him on that, and just really trying to help other families that are in the same position. I want to get laws passed in other states because I think education is what's really going to help save kids.
Yeah.
And then I also want to write a book, a children's book. Before Rain passed away, she told me, or I had asked her to write a book with me, a children's book, because my mom, she passed away. And so she always said, Karla, you need to write children's books. So I asked Rain before she passed away, I said, will you write a children's book with me and illustrate it? And she said, Mom, I'd love to. And so we never got that chance. So now I really want to write a children's book and illustrate it and kind of make it something that elementary age kids could understand and bring awareness to them about fentanyl, since it's not really going to be in the schools. But if I do a book, and I want to have a picture Rain drew for me when she was 8, and I want that to be the cover.
That's amazing. I can't express like how much I applaud you for doing everything that you're doing amidst the grief. I can't even begin to imagine how hard that is. But I think the fact that you are continuing to fight for our kids, not just your kids, but our kids every single day, is truly amazing. So one, I really appreciate that. And thank you for all that you're doing on a local, state, and national level. I know that, this work is very personal to you and very sensitive. But I think what you said just really hits home that, it's a horrible thing that Rain's not here with us, but if it can save one life, if it can save a handful of lives, then the work that you're doing is truly remarkable. So if Rain was listening, to this conversation, and I believe that she is in heaven, and what is something that you would want to say to her?
That I love her. And that I'm so proud of her, and that I can't wait to see her again, and that I'm going to do everything she can to make sure she's teaching, and that I'm taking care of her dog. Because she said shortly before she passed away, she posted a picture on Facebook of her dog and her, and she said, I believe God made Mars just for me. And then after she passed away, I realized he made her for us too.
Yeah.
Because, that I didn't want to get out of bed, and I knew that my husband wasn't going to get out of bed and take care of the dog. No one else would. And I was like, that dog was her everything. So it's the closest grandchild I have.
Yeah.
So I got out of bed and I took care of her dog, and on her collar it says Rain's baby forever and always.
Wow. Karla, you're amazing. I'll reiterate what Kennedy said, but what really struck me is what you said about her. She's going to school to be a teacher, and what you said to her the day before she passed I believe you're going to be a great teacher someday. And she is. Like, she's, especially now with Rain's Law passed, like, she is truly going to be teaching kids, and it wouldn't be possible without you and what you've done. And so we just applaud you for sharing the story. And I mean, I can't imagine, me going through that situation, talking about it and sharing the story. And so we just thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your story, and we're in your corner.
Yeah. Thanks for trusting us with your personal and this hard information and story. So we will, like Cass said, always be in your corner.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, and just, being willing to hear her story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And share it.
Thanks, Karla.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. We hope that you learned and are able to take away a lot from Karla's story about Rain. I know Rain's story will live on with us forever, and that we will continue to fight to continue her legacy. If you're interested in learning more about how you can help or finding resources, we will have those in the show notes, along with Karla's social media, that you are able to learn more about what she's doing on a state, local, or national level, or just learn more about what we can be doing to talk to our kids about the dangers of fentanyl poisoning. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Threads of Wellth. Give us a 5-star review, and we will see you next time.